Hello and welcome to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. We get curious about all things gender, sex, and sexuality, as well as relationships, feminism, the inclusive kind, mental health and kink, and all that makes us humans unique and diverse. From body positivity to body dysmorphia, it's all welcome here. Come with us on a journey of inclusion, acceptance, and respect. I'm your host, Esther Lemons. I identify as a cisgender woman, and my pronouns are she and her. In this episode, I'm speaking to Felix, a figure skater and university student who plans to go into teaching. Felix's pronouns are they, them. They are non-binary transgender and describe their sexuality as queer. Find out what that means to Felix in this episode. We also talk about the difficulty with fitting in boxes, having to perform gender, how body and identity are different, the binariness in teaching and sports, and how you can figure out your gender at any age. It was recorded on the 18th of November 2020. Now let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome. What's your name?
My name's Felix.
And how do you identify, Felix?
Non-binary and queer.
Lovely. And what does that mean to you?
So basically, it just means that I don't really fit into any box. I don't fit into any gendered box, like I don't feel male or female, and I've kind of given up on trying to label my sexuality.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So what's that been like for you? Have you always felt that, or are they labels or identities that you've come to later in your life?
Well, I was never really very aware of kind of LGBTQ stuff when I was growing up. I didn't really think about it, and my story's not very typical in that I didn't kind of figure out that I was trans really early in life. I think that's mostly because my mum never really pushed gender norms or anything like that onto me, so I could kind of wear whatever I wanted to, play with whatever I wanted to, and it wasn't really a big deal. And I was also home educated for a while, so like I did kind of grow up without a lot of those pressures that most people experience. So I didn't figure anything out about my gender until I was about 16.
And how did that show up?
Well, I was dating somebody at the time who was questioning their gender, so I started looking into it a bit more, and then I figured out, oh, this kind of sounds like it applies to me. And for a long time, I identified as a binary trans man, but then I figured out that that didn't really fit very well because I didn't feel comfortable trying to push myself into that box. Because in the end, it is another box, and a lot of people are very happy there and a lot more comfortable there. But I wasn't, because I felt like I was kind of cutting out bits of myself, trying to dress in a typically masculine way and trying to look especially like a man, like not painting my nails and stuff like that. It's all stereotypes that shouldn't really apply, but unfortunately they still do, especially for trans people, because we often feel like we have to perform our gender to a really high level in order to be taken seriously. Like for quite a long time, trans women wouldn't be taken seriously at doctor appointments and allowed to transition unless they were wearing a skirt or a dress. And it's like, how many women do you know who wear skirts and dresses every single day? It's like we're held to a different standard.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, totally. So you mentioned the word binary. Would you say you've had a typically binary transition?
Yeah, I would say in terms of my physical transition and kind of the dysphoria that I experience. Yeah, I've been on hormones for about 3 years now, just over, I think, and I had top surgery too, and it's kind of been a little bit of a trade-off. As I've become more comfortable with my body physically, I've actually started presenting in a more feminine way because I feel comfortable to do it. It's like prior to my physical transition, I was kind of overcompensating by trying to look as male as I could in order for people to take me seriously. But now, I mean, I probably get misgendered more now than I did then. But I don't mind it because, like, it's my choice. Like, if I had kind of normal, boring hair and didn't paint my fingernails and stuff like that, then I'm sure everybody would see me as a guy. But I'm choosing to be a bit more fluid in my presentation and just do what makes me feel comfortable rather than what box I'm supposed to be fitting into.
Yeah. So I'm curious about, because obviously you say non-binary really resonates with you, but your transition was pretty much binary. Do you feel like that contradicts each other? People might think that, or how do you feel that fits together?
I think basically it's kind of like how I feel that my body should be is a separate thing from how I identify internally. Like if I'd
Mm.
been assigned male at birth, I'd still be non-binary, but I probably wouldn't feel the need to make changes to my body.
Hmm.
And like everyone's non-binary transition looks different.
Hmm.
Plenty of non-binary people have a stereotypically binary transition, or just do parts of a transition, or maybe take hormones at a lower dose, or plenty of non-binary people don't feel the need to transition at all. And it's
Hmm.
just kind of what everyone's level of physical comfort or discomfort with their body looks like.
Yeah. It's very individual thing, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So do you have a sense of completion in your transition? And what about that in your identity?
I'm not really sure yet. Like, I have considered bottom surgery on and off for a long time.
Hmm.
It's not really something that I'm sure if I'll do or not. I kind
Hmm.
of prefer to wait for the technologies of it to improve a little bit. And
Hmm.
also, as I'm quite an active person outside of lockdown, I'm a figure skater, and I don't really
Oh,
want to go through all of the multiple surgeries and recovery times and everything that's necessary for bottom surgery.
wow. Yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like what's more of a priority at this point in my life.
Yeah, that's fair enough. How did your family respond to it? Like your gender journey, like coming out and things?
Well, it was quite interesting, really. My mum and dad are not together, and they were quite kind of opposite in how they reacted. My
Hmm.
dad was very much like, I don't understand any of this, but you do what makes you happy. And he kind of trusted me to know what was right for me.
Hmm.
Whereas my mum is kind of a bit more woke, and she was like, oh yeah, I get all the identity stuff, and she did a lot of reading around it, and she kind of said to me that she understood it, but she didn't want me to do anything to change my body or do
Mm.
any actual aspects of transition. She was like, you should just be who you are without changing your body, because she's got kind of weird hang-ups about being natural, and like she doesn't like the fact that I have tattoos and stuff like that. So yeah, it's
Mm.
not just limited to transition.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I heard that actually listening to a podcast called How to Be a Girl of a woman who's got a transgender child. And that's exactly how she felt about her child at first until she saw that her child was just miserable, and she had to get her head around the idea of that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So, what is your life like at the moment? Do you have a partner, relationship, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm in a relationship. I live with my partner. We're both in our last year of university, and then
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go on to do a teacher training course next year. And
Hmm.
yeah, hopefully in the year or so after that, we might buy a house.
Oh, lovely. Cool. How do you foresee things in your sort of future career with gender? I mean, how are people responding to like gender non-conforming people? Do you have any idea about that?
It is something that I've kind of been putting a lot of thought into, because obviously teaching is a very binary profession. If you think about kind of how the students address the teachers and things like that, it's all,
Mm.
oh, sir and miss and that kind of thing. And there are a few non-binary teachers out there. There's one school, I can't remember the name of it, but if you go on their website, they have a non-binary teacher in their meet the staff section, and there is a non-binary title of MX, which is pronounced mix. But I don't personally feel comfortable using that because it's like it just sounds a little bit like miss to me, and
Mm.
I just don't really like it that much. I like it on paper, but I don't think I'd like to be called it. So what I'm planning on doing is going by Sir and Mister and using kind of most of the male things, but going by they them pronouns where possible.
Yeah.
And I've discussed that with the training provider for my teacher training course, and they're happy to support me with that. So
Oh, that's
that's the
great.
first step.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I always say to people, like, I am non binary, you should be using they them pronouns for me. But like my second choice is being referred to as masculine and he him pronouns.
Yeah. So, what do you think could be done in the profession or in the teaching profession to be more open or accepting of gender diversity?
I think we definitely need to improve the kind of sex and relationships education that goes on in schools and
Hmm.
diversity education for teachers as well. There's a lot of controversy about what you should and shouldn't be teaching children, but it's like
Hmm.
being transgender and non-binary, it's not anything sexual, it's just who you are. And the same with different sexualities. Like children are exposed to being straight and being cisgender from literally the minute they're born. It's all about like Disney princess films where the guy and the girl live happily ever after and stuff like that. And if you think
Mm.
that that's okay to show your child men and women kissing and all that kind of thing, then why isn't it okay to let your child know that it's okay to be gay or bisexual or transgender or anything like that?
Yeah,
And
totally.
definitely there should be more education of teachers within the profession as well, and school leadership teams should be better equipped to support gender diverse teachers. I think there have been a couple of cases, I'm not sure about in this country, but I know in America, I think it was America, there was a case where a teacher came out as non-binary and was then either sacked or transferred to a different position or something like that because of
Mm.
complaints from parents. And it's like parents are going to complain, but the leadership team should always be taking the side of their own staff, especially
Mm.
in a case that's about like identity and gender diversity and stuff like that.
Yeah, because you often see the kids don't have much of a problem with it at all. It is
Yeah,
all the adults, isn't it? Yeah. We're
yeah.
just more conditioned.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. Is there anything else you'd like to add that you feel is important to say?
I'm not really sure. I think it's really important for me to kind of get the message out that it's okay to not know who you are when you're 5 years old, because
Mm.
all you see in the media is trans people who knew who they were practically as soon as they could walk and talk. And the
Yeah.
reality for a lot of people, it's not like that. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't have the education or the resources or the time or the mental space to realize and process things about themselves while they're growing up. So
Mhm.
a lot of people don't figure out anything at all until they're in their 20s or even much later, and like that's okay, and you're still valid as trans if you don't figure it out until later.
Yeah, yeah. I love that.
And also that it's okay, like if you figure out that you're transgender and then you start kind of socially transitioning and something still doesn't feel right, like that's often a sign that you're non-binary, because kind of that's
Mm.
that's what it was like for me. I came out and then I kind of backtracked a little bit because I couldn't really figure out what was going on and why it still didn't feel quite right. But like, just kind of do what works for you and don't try and push yourself into another box for the sake of other people being comfortable with you.
Yeah, totally. Just trying to think of anything else to ask you, really.
I suppose there is figure skating, obviously, is a big part of my life, and that is an extremely binary gendered sport.
Yeah, yeah. It must be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything in figure skating is men's and women's categories, and like in ice dance and pair skating, there's the man and the lady, and there's not really much wiggle room there for anything else. I haven't really done many competitions yet because I came a bit late to the sport to do anything serious with it, but I
Mhm.
have done some. And the competitions that I've done, I've just gone in under the male category because that's
Right.
easiest and most comfortable for me. And I believe it's also all that I'm eligible for now that I'm on hormones. But I
Mm.
think it is kind of unnecessarily gendered in some cases. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard with high level sports because there are performance differences, but
Mm-hmm.
there should be more flexible areas. The competition that I did, obviously, it's at a lower level, and I don't think it needed to be gendered. I don't think, there weren't
Mm-hmm.
any measurable performance differences between the categories. But they
Mm-hmm.
did well in that they had a separate category, which was the exhibition skate, where it was judged on entertainment rather than technical quality, and that
Mm-hmm.
didn't have gender categories. So I thought that was pretty good. But
Oh
yeah, figure
yeah.
skating has a long way to go.
Well, let's hope you can educate them from the inside out then, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me about your journey. I guess we're
Oh,
good
that's it.
then. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. You can find out more details on the website at 50shadesofgender.com/Felix, where you can also read the transcript. Thank you for listening to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. You can find us online at 50shadesofgender.com and on social media. If you'd like to support us, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Plans start from only $1 a month. Visit patreon.com/50 Shades of Gender for more details. We hope you will listen again. Until then, stay curious and open minded.